something strange happened to me during a walk. I was out with my dog, following our usual route at the same time as always. This particular part of the walk is the darkest, with an unlit alley to the left. Suddenly, my dog became highly alert and started barking frantically. I had headphones on, but could tell something was wrong. I looked toward the alley but didn't see anything at first. As my eyes adjusted, I saw a very tall and skinny man standing there. He didn't move, just stood facing me and staring. He was dressed entirely in black, wearing long pants and a long-sleeved shirt, which was odd given the 100-degree temperatures all week. It was also strange for him to be wearing a giant black sun hat at 10:30 at night. I froze and said, loudly, as I turned off my headphones to listen. The man remained silent, so I turned toward him but kept walking forward. After a moment of silence, as I tried to walk away, chalking it up to a creepy but harmless encounter, he began to follow me. This man followed me for about 2-3 minutes, saying absolutely nothing, just staring at me. When I felt I could speak, I yelled, "My dog's gonna bite you." That seemed to scare him a bit because after another 30 seconds of following me slowly, he turned onto the sidewalk and went a different way. When he turned to leave, I noticed he had a huge, extremely full backpack on. I have a really uneasy feeling about this. I walk this path almost every night, and this man just happened to be standing there in the darkest alley. There's also a missing woman just 3 minutes away from me, and it's alleged that she was assaulted a few days before her sudden disappearance. I was very freaked out by the whole encounter. To clarify, I am a male, and this happened when I was 16. It was just another regular day at school. After getting off the bus, I began my usual 12-minute walk home. Everything seemed normal until I reached a narrow road between two buildings where cars have to squeeze through. I always walk on the edge to let cars pass easily. One car, which I hadn't seen before in my area, approached from behind. As usual, I moved to the right side of the road to let it pass, but it didn't. This had happened before with cautious drivers, so I wasn't too worried at first. I signaled again with my body language, indicating the driver could pass, but the car continued to crawl slowly behind me. I started getting paranoid because this had never happened to me before. It felt like the driver or the people inside wanted something from me. There wasn't another person or car nearby. I quickened my pace and eventually exited the narrow road, reaching an open area where you could turn left or right, or turn around and go back the way you came. I chose the right road and heard a male voice shout angrily, "Hey!" I didn't turn around. I just kept speed walking. The car then turned around and drove back down the narrow road. I couldn't see the registration number because the car sped off too quickly. I never saw it again. I kept looking back to make sure it wasn't following me, as I didn't want the driver to know where I lived. There could be many explanations. Maybe it was a friend trying to say hello, but he wouldn't have shouted at me like that. Perhaps the driver wanted to ask for directions, which has happened to me before, but people are usually friendly. I want to believe this explanation. On a darker note, it could have been an attempted robbery, or even worse, a kidnapping. I don't know. Am I being paranoid? This just happened to me not too long ago, and I'm still rather shaken up. A friend and I were walking down the street back to my apartment. It was dark since it is late here. As we walked on the sidewalk past a dark parking lot, a woman emerged from the shadows. She seemed to be waiting for us to approach, which I found strange. Another woman, walking alone about half a block ahead of us, had passed by her without incident. The woman stopped us by looking me in the eye and saying, "Excuse me, I think you're so beautiful and I want to know your name." My friend and I exchanged confused glances and said, She added, "I promise I'm not being weird." Despite this assurance, we remained silent, standing there in shock. The woman became more urgent, pleading, "Please, I just really want to know your name. Finally, I snapped out of it and said, "No, thank you," and we walked away. As we moved on, I glanced back, driven by a bad gut feeling. I saw her talking to a man in a car across the street. Both were watching us intently before she got in the car and they sped off. Here's what I think happened. The man and the woman were likely looking for someone to traffic. They must have seen us from a distance and positioned themselves ahead of us while remaining unnoticed due to the darkness, trees, and the long street. The man probably instructed her to try to lure me into the car, but she failed. Do you think this was a sex trafficking scheme to try to get us into the car? Why was she so urgent and aggressive about my name? What was the man doing there? Should I be worried that they might come back? I live in a small town, so I've never felt unsafe being alone. Over the summer, I began taking night walks for exercise and to listen to podcasts. I dislike crossing streets, feeling judged by people in cars, so I walked at night when fewer people were around. During summer, it didn't get dark until around 9 p.m., so I walked from 10 p.m. to midnight. Initially, I wandered down random streets until I found a path I liked, which I'd loop twice to cover 8 miles. This route took me across bridges, main streets, and neighborhoods with minimal street lamps, and through parking lots to avoid busier areas. About 2 months in, I started feeling paranoid. Normally, I'm always paranoid, thinking people are watching me in public. This time, the paranoia felt different. I noticed the same guy walking my path almost every night, always a street or two ahead of me. Because he was ahead, I sometimes felt like the creepy one following him, even though I'd been walking this path for months. I worried he thought I was following him. After a week or two of this, it blew up in a small but freaky way. One night, he turned onto a different street, so I lost sight of him. I continued my walk and decided to stop at a store for a drink, which I hadn't done in a month. Inside the store, I saw the same guy wearing a puffy blue coat and a blue medical mask. I thought it was funny seeing him there, but after getting my drink and leaving, I noticed he was behind me, walking too close. My paranoia spiked, so I quickened my pace and lowered my headphone volume. I heard him calling out, saying things like, "Wait up, little lady, and can't you just stop for a second?" I was shocked, as I rarely get mistaken for a woman. I stopped, confused, and he jogged up, asking why I was ignoring him. When I replied with my deep voice, he backed away, looking weirded out. He mumbled something about thinking I was someone else, and apologized before walking off. The next day, I connected the dots of what had almost happened. I took a week-long break from my walks, and when I resumed, he was gone. Since I never saw his face and barely spoke to him, there was nothing to report. I just let it go.